Hi guys, my name is Peter Tommasini from Classic Car Restorations, and in this segment we're going to show you how to read the paper pattern on certain shapes. In this particular case we've got the front of this Ferrari, the front panel, and it's got this shape here as you can see. So I'm gonna show you how to read this particular shape. We're going to start off with looking at the main shape first. So I've got these sweeps, but if you haven't got any, you can easily make something like this. It's a little bit aluminium, marked out, cut and filed. So it's very simple to make. It doesn't take long. 10 minutes you'll have a make, and this is what you must use all the way through. Without this, you're really working blind. Especially if you haven't got a buck or you haven't got anything. So if you take the sweep off another car, or you make your own sweep, or you make your own shape, make sure to have one of these at all time. Without that, you're working blind. Okay, so as you can see, I already laid the paper out, and we've got this shape. Okay, there's the shape that we have in all the station. I'm going over the station, and you can see that the shape is the same all the way through. So the first thing we got to concentrate on is to put this shape in it by using this pattern or this sweep. I show you the blank after. I already cut the blank, but the problem, or the secret should I say, of making this panel is here, right here. Now this shape is a little bit tighter than normal, but if most of Ferraris are like that, and some Aston Martins are like that, and some Jags are like that, the only difference that it changes is, the only change I should say, is the amount of turn you have. Some are very tight, some are a little bit wider, but the principle of making a panel like this is the same. So let's start off with laying out the pattern, pull it tight here a little bit, and mark this radius. Now as you can see underneath here, that's where the radius starts and that's where the radius finish. So we've got this to keep in mind. We then have that shape here, which is where to start to come into the overall shape. Now, one thing that you must not do on this is shrink it. And if there's any shrinking, it'll be very, very minimal. Now, I'll show you why. I'll get the camera to zoom in a little bit in this particular point, and I'll show you what happens if you shrink. Okay, so if we shrink this panel like so, it's gonna flatten out. Do you see that? It's flattened out. Watch. So if I hold it like that and shrink it, it's gonna flatten out and put a lot of shape there where you don't want it. This panel needs to be stretched all the way through. If I shrink it, it would only be because I stretched it too much, but the idea is to wheel up the main shape and then start wheeling here and possibly a little bit of blocking to achieve that shape up here. That's all you need to know. You put this shape all the way through. If I put this here and shrink it, you can see, again, you can see that it's not going to work. It needs to be stretched all the way through. So now that we got this, okay, so when the blank is cut, it'll look dead straight. That will allow you to do some wheeling here because it's straight, using the proper handle on the wheeling machine, and then very slowly just bend a little bit and get it anywhere in there. It doesn't really matter. You get it somewhere near it and get this and that nice and parallel. In other words, like so. When it comes to push this edge in, when it comes to hit that edge in, you need to stretch it. It needs to be longer. This at the moment is short, so when I push this in, watch. Can you see that it wants to bend itself? Look, it'll go in on its own. It'll go in, you can push it until it's touching the buck or your profile or your sweep. And then from now on, you need to stretch it back up. Because if you don't stretch it back up, it'll just turn like so. Too much. So just recap. You do all your wheeling. You finish the panel off at this point like that. It's all nice. Then you wheel a little bit more and bend it, little bit more and bend it. Get to a point where you're comfortable. Then with a pair of pliers, just initiate that curve and start to bend it down without stretching. You'll find that by doing so, as you can see the paper telling you exactly what to do, as I push this in, look, see that? It's giving you the shape. From that point, you then start stretching. And this is the same. You bring it to that point, and from that point you start stretching. Look at the paper. Have a look. Can you see that? Okay. Okay, some people might shrink, and you know, that's the way they do it. But the problem is that if you start shrinking here, if you start shrinking that, you're then going to bend the panel this way. And possibly too much, because you'll be doing a lot of shrinking through here. What that means is that by shrinking this front section here, you're going to lift this and your shape will disappear. You won't know how much shape to put up here. So I'm going to stop in a minute and show you what I'm talking about in a bit of paper, in a piece of metal, I'm sorry. Okay, let me show you on a bit of metal exactly what I'm talking about in case people do not understand. I quickly wheeled up a piece of aluminium, roughly the shape of this. Okay, there she's there. And I put my main shape here first and a lot more wheeling through here. Now, let me show you something. I'm going to put that gauge in there and show you how much shape that panel has. I'll get the camera to zoom in and literally see when I lift it up how much shape that panel has. Okay? Now, I'm going to start shrinking. Okay, so if this is the shape you want and you're happy with it and you start shrinking this down or block it and shrink it, this is going to happen. I'm just going to put a couple of pretend packers there. Just little ones, they're not too big. Now in case I exaggerate with this, I'm going to open them up a little bit. Okay, so now we got our shrinking. Now have a look at the shape that we had before. See the gap underneath? What that means is that not only you've gone around too far, and there's the example, because remember, we start off with the blank wheeled up at the right shape, going by this. We put our sweeps here, we put our sweep there, there, and we are happy with the main shape. By shrinking it, that's what you get. Not only that, but the back of the panel, meaning this back here, will follow suit. And if you do any wheeling in there, at that point, once you back home, once you back around, you'll find that you'll be too full, because what you've done, you then flatten it back out. Once that goes back in there and you stretch it, the panel will relax down, and because you re-wheel that, you'll be too full. So now I've got a little gauge here that I'll show you what it does. I'm going to take this off. Now that we see that we got the paper pattern and we got the amount of metal and so on and so on, I'm taking the pattern out and show you what I mean. So I'm going to lift this out of the way. Okay, I've made this little pattern here, and as you can see, it's got a little foot on it. All the foot does is stop me from rocking and give me the wrong reading. In other words, it's simple, just like so. And as you can see, it fits all the way through. Now, you can't just use that because it's fully done. So what I did is, I made a sample, and now I'm going to put the pattern on there the same way. But in order to keep check of every shape at all time, eventually I'm going to straighten this panel in different stages. In other words, I'm going to straighten and take the first stage and make a little pattern, the second stage and make a little pattern, and then finally the final stage. You only need to take it to about this stage here, because once the panel is made, you hook it in there, anneal it, and literally press it in. The aluminium will be soft enough to press it in. If you haven't got a buck, then you can make yourself a tool, and I've got it right here. Now this tool will simply go in there and you just bring that down with a hammer and dolly, or a pair of pliers, and you bring it down. You can also make a wooden or plastic tool that goes right in there, and you can then chase it very slowly, and by chasing it slowly you'll find this will shut anyway. But there's many ways you can turn that in. Regardless of the sharpness of the turn, or for example, or an Aston Martin, the panel is a lot shorter, but it's a lot broader here. But the same principle applied. You need to make profiles. If you haven't got the profiles, then the factory that does many of them will have a solid buck, and all they do, they just put the panel in there, clamp it down and turn it over. But we haven't got that facilities. We've got to do without it. In this case, I will not bang on that because this will probably break. So what I'm doing, I'm using this method, and I'm taking it over a little bit at a time, and then anneal the panel, put it in there, and literally just bend it over with my hands. It will go. Okay, so now, let's see, when I beg your pardon, when I make the panel, as I said before, I will straighten this out. That'll give me the amount of shape that I need prior to turn it. So you need to make a little sample like so. Okay, so now I'm going to go through some of the tools that I'm going to use to do this. Okay, this is a bit of wood, but you can make that of plastic. And as you can see, the way I've cut it, it's cut in such a way that when it goes into here, you can hit that very slowly once it's annealed, or even not annealed. You hit it very slowly, and that will give you the shape that you need and stop the edge coming any further than that. You can clearly see it there. So have a look at the tool and have a look at the position that it goes in. Not that position, because that'll change everything. That position. This tool it is the same angle of that, which in terms is that. So what that means is, then when you got your wheeling done and you wheel more here, these lines here, I'm going to show you in a minute what they means, yellow and red. This tool will go into your panel like so, and with the pan on a nail, or possibly not a nail, on a sandbag, you can drive it down. That will maintain all your shape. If you're trying to squeeze it, chances are you're going to lose it right there. Okay, now, I'm going to go to the blank and explain further. I already cut the blank, and in the next video, we're going to show how we wheel it. This video is about patterning and how to read the panel. So, let me show you the blank. Okay, there's our blank. That's the outside, and I've pre-bend it by hand a little bit, not too much. You can see the shape there, and you can see the shape here. Now that blank is cut off that pattern. Now let's go on the lines and explain what's going on here. So what we've got this shape here, which is exactly that shape there. And then we got a red line here where the blocking is made. Now keep in mind that when you block here, very lightly, very evenly, parallel to that, this edge will start to turn. Just start to turn. As you block this, don't forget this is pre-wheeled to the shape that I explained to you before. This has already got the shape in. So we know that that shape there is then this shape, okay, when it's wheeled. So all you need to do is to block that and stretch that to maintain that shape. Okay, so you block it on the red line and you maintain that shape, the shape here. If it goes further round, stretch the edge. Then the green represent light blocking, and then we got the blend. The blend is to blend it into the rest of the shape. Because when you block it here, chances are you're going to get a hollow here. So what have we done? We pre-wheel the shape, we block on the red line, we blend it into the green line, and then blend it in again to the main shape. I'm going back to the sample that I've made. There you are. Okay? And then of course you got your gauge. Now I'll repeat again, you cannot put any gauge because these have different stages of shaping. So after I wheel the shape on this, I'll be straightening that out, and that will tell me roughly how much shape you need through here. So I can make a profile, so I can actually say, right, stage 1, there. Stage 2, there. Stage 3, there. And I can comfortably then be comfortable enough to know that not much is going to change. If it does change, that's when this little fella comes in. It is a little bit at a time. Don't rush it, don't squash it too quick, because you're going to lose things and you're going to get lost. So if you use this fella and very lightly tap him up, if there's enough shape in there, this will put the shape in the right place on the sandbag without destroying anything else. So to recapture this, and then we're going to go more in the paper pattern side of it, get your main shape in, make sure that it's sitting nicely, start to block on the red line, the edge will start to come in. Clean it up and blend it on the green line, and then blend it with the wheel outwards. Now, while the panel is just like that, you can still go on the wheel and clean it up. That's why you don't want to lock yourself in too early, because then you can't put the wheel there. And you'll have to do a lot of handwork. And then slowly, slowly, with the gauge at this stage, you bring it around. And as I mentioned before, you only need to bring around that far, because then you anneal it and push it up. We're now going back onto the paper pattern again. So, now that I explain all that, you can see what that means here. This area here is the total circumference, the total length of this shape. You mark it red and yellow, and then blend. Now keep in mind this is already done. If your first stage was to that, as I mentioned before, if your first stage is that, you can then re-wheel in here without that interfering. And once you've got it right to that point, and of course you'll be checking that profile as well, you can then proceed and keep bending and keep your eyes on the overall shape here and there. But the main thing that I want to stress is don't shrink it here. Don't block it and shrink it for a number of reasons. Let's presume that somehow you can block that and shrink it and somehow maintain the shape. You're going to have had a hell of a job to re-stretch that back home, because that's already shrunk. You've got to make that even longer, and it's a bloody big job. So the idea of not shrinking it will be to keep everything going the same way at all time, and then at the last minute just turn it over, just like that. Okay, so that's for that panel. In the next episode I'm going to wheel the panel, and I'm going to show you step by step how you do this. Okay, so now we're going to go on another pattern and show you how to read that pattern. I hope you understand what I meant here. You can always go back and perhaps send me an email or something, but I think it's well explained. You see? You just simply don't shrink it.